This is the unrestricted free agent.
The Jimbo Fisher stuff. Were you in the room the other day when he threw?
I was. Part of the reason we had so much fun being Clemson was because we used to talk a lot of shit to them and they couldn't handle it.
You feel fine, but your hands are shaking.
Coach Spurrier couldn't give a damn.
I want to take these athletes and mentor them.
Why can't the Gamecocks win at the SEC tournament?
So sunny all the time, so hot.
Too sunny.
Too sunny.
Fans are going to be fans, and people who understand the sport are going to talk sports.
With some weird dynamics.
It's going to be painful, but I think at the end of the day, we'll be stronger people for it.
Stronger today, sounding a little throaty, but feeling much better. Glad you're a part of the program. Glad to be back after a day off with the feeling much better on a Wednesday morning, June 22nd, 2022. Welcome into Jason at 7:38, saying hello on the YouTube live stream. Greg, what's good, folks? Anthony, the Good Morning UFAs, right on the dot at 8 o'clock. Here we go. Going strong, like the SEC. Last night, Arkansas eliminated Auburn. At that point, it was 4 the last 5. SEC team left in Omaha, not counting now, with the left down to 5-4, all 4 playing today. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, driver's seat, defeated twice. They had a national championship series. Texas A&M, Oklahoma at 2 o'clock, and then tonight's game Arkansas and Ole Miss. It has not been close. I don't know what the field is, but it's been disappointing. All right, the sound is we might have a bit of an audio issue here. And we'll just try to pop it. I'll pop back in. Try that with the audio. Like that, the audio issue as well. A little bit of a experience. I'll just have I'll just go with Stuart Lake giving us the let's go with Stuart Lake. I love it.
I never got any joy beating somebody's ass by 50 points and giving them a paycheck, just to come get a W. I think that's ridiculous. There's a lot more joy, and if you're a competitor, I'd much rather play. Like our 2-year rotation, everybody was complaining, oh man, South Carolina's got Alabama coming up. Well, we gave them a tussle loose, and then the next year we beat them and beat the hell out of them in Columbia. And that was a lot more fun than playing Kisgee crap.
Try this thing again, huh? What do you think, guys? Get instant feedback of the live stream. Moved up to 8 a.m. You guys are with me, making me know there was a bit of an audio issue. And let's see if we got it fixed. Josh gave me the audio issue. The sound is funky, along with Craig. Thank you guys for better. How about that? Fantastic. That was the old turn it off, turn it back on. Try it again. Good. Does better mean good, by the way? Are we good to go rolling forward, I guess, is my question. Thumbs up from DC. Fantastic. How about that? That's where all those years of dealing with technical issues and local TV and radio come into play. You just kind of learn to expect it at some point. Thank you guys for your patience. Thanks for making the adjustment back to the 8 a.m. hour. Moving things up from what we were doing 10 to noon, from 8 to 10 now. A little bit more helpful with the 2-year-old around the house is really the plan there. Also, I love being kind of first crack in the morning, right? From last night, if you didn't stay up, you didn't miss anything at the College World Series because these games just haven't been close. Last night, it was 11-1. Arkansas completely dominant over a great story with an Auburn team. Picked to finish last in the SEC West, make the run to Omaha, second time they've done it here in the last few years, and won their first game of the College World Series since like 97, I think I saw the other day. Another stat that just reminds me of the dominant era that was Gamecock baseball, Clemson baseball, making it consistently to Omaha, having tons of success. But again, today's 2:00 game, Texas A&M going to have to beat Oklahoma twice to keep Oklahoma from going to the National Championship Series. Arkansas going to have to beat Ole Miss twice. That's a 7:00 game. One other baseball note, Braves losing the slugfest last night to the San Francisco Giants in Atlanta, 12-10 the final score. Mets also losing, though, so Atlanta's still 5.5 games back of the Mets. So disappointing to me not to have better College World Series games, not to have more drama, more eyes tuned in on that thing. And then when SEC teams dominate, I think it's easier for the rest of the country to kind of ignore it. College baseball is a cult sport to begin with. I think we love it on this program by and large because of how South Carolina is set up. No professional baseball team. Maybe your affiliation is like me. You're a Braves guy, being the closest. Having TBS growing up. They were back on TBS last night, by the way. Made it feel kind of old school. If it had been a 7:05 start after Andy Griffith or something, then I'd be all in on it. But with it being the main topic of conversation, what you can follow day in and day out, and like the pacing of it and the whole thing during June, especially this time of year for so many years in the past decades, college baseball just means more in South Carolina. It means more in the state of Mississippi, Louisiana. Where else should we go across the country? Those are the ones. Arkansas. Those are the states in the country for sure. College baseball has peak interest. Unfortunately for this year's College World Series, Notre Dame was involved to kind of broaden things out, but sent home now. Texas was one of the big boys, obviously. Been there 38 times now. 2 in queue for them. Coming to the SEC anyway. So I'm not sure college baseball is a big winner this year with the SEC dominance. And a bit surprising for sure this year with the SEC having been a bit down, allegedly. But here they are. Other big news yesterday, Brooks Koepka joining the Live Series in golf. We'll get to plenty of that drama. And, man, you talk about a PR nightmare. Brooksy at the U.S. Open press conference, just saying people are talking about it too much. He's tired of the conversation. Turns around the next week, joins the Live Series, takes the money. We should have seen it coming when his brother was part of it, right? We should have seen it coming. But especially to talk about it the way he did is really representative, I think, of who he is. And then Rob Gronkowski retiring yesterday. Also headlining news. Got me thinking about best tight end ever. Certainly he's right up there, if not the number one. I think it might depend on your era of football. And then the stat going by yesterday that he and Tom Brady, assuming they're done, and this came through a couple of times before in past retirements, right behind Tom Brady, Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison. That's the only other connection combining for more NFL touchdowns. Made me start thinking about my favorite Gamecock quarterback connection, my favorite NFL quarterback connection. Let's get in our first guest this morning and see what popped in his head first, as we got the old flattering underneath shooting up at the chin camera angle for Scotty Eisberg. Where are you headed this morning, Scotty?
Little daycare camp carpool, then daycare carpool. I got 2, so just trying to be safe and not looking at the phone.
Good
so
call.
I've got it in the cup holder, but this new early time zone thing that you've got going on just kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop. So I had to do it in the vehicle in between 2 drop-offs.
Impressive. So what time is camp starting? We got some early camps or not?
8.
Okay. So are you free and clear now of the kids?
No. I dropped one off for 8, and then the other one starts at 9. So I am en route from one camp back to my house to get other child, and then on with her to the next one, and then I'm cleared up of kids. But by the time I drop the next one off, like, your show's almost over at that point. So I figured this is probably the best time to get this done.
Excellent. You are the second, no, maybe third person to join us via vehicle. I think Savell Newton might have done it first. He went ahead and pulled over in his car, and he was making a trip, I think, from Myrtle Beach to Charleston or somewhere in between there. Jason says this looks like a NASCAR camera view.
Yeah, maybe, I like that.
Yeah, the in driver's seat camera view coming through bright and clear, Scotty. Good stuff there, man.
All right,
what about
nice.
you? What's the quarterback pass catcher? I was going to say wide receiver connection, but Gronk obviously not a wide receiver. What's the quarterback connection that pops in your head? Your favorite one? Not necessarily the best, not necessarily the one that put up the most numbers, but when you think about a quarterback throwing a touchdown pass, what's the top pair in your head?
Gamecocks or overall?
Overall, just blanket statement. Favorite quarterback connection? Who you got?
My gosh, I mean, oh man, that's a tough question. Best overall combination? I mean, Montana to Rice, I would think, right? I mean, wouldn't that be the natural
I'm with you
one?
on that as far as best. I think best conversation ends pretty quickly. Favorite is a different one, right? My favorite one, for instance, Joe Theismann to Art Monk back in the day.
Okay,
Washington
that's
Redskins.
an interesting one.
It's the one that popped in my head. Like, when I think about what I enjoyed the most, that's the one that pops up in my head. What about you?
It's still a tough. I mean, I guess I would. My gosh, that's a tough question. As far as favorite goes, I mean, my favorite wide receiver ever was Wayne Krebet. I loved Wayne Krebet on the Jets. I guess who would have thrown to Wayne Krebet? It would have been who would have thrown to Wayne Krebet? I can't even remember now. Would it have been Vinny Testaverde, or would it have been Boomer Esiason, or would it have been Ken O'Brien? No, it would have been after Ken O'Brien. After Ken O'Brien, I would say Vinny or Chad Pennington. Or it was before Chad Pennington, right?
I don't know. I think that sounds about right. It might have been Pennington more of anything else. So you're starting from the wide receiver standpoint. That's kind of how I came at it too, with the Art Monk connection.
Yeah, I loved Wayne Krebet because he was a Hofstra guy. I loved Wayne Krebet because he was a Hofstra guy before Hofstra gave up football, and I was always a Hofstra fan. So, Wayne Krebet was probably my favorite wide receiver of all time. He was a tough, gritty dude. Little guy, small school. I always liked him. I'm just having trouble remembering who was throwing to Wayne Krebet. Oh, that's Tom Foley. Glenn Foley. You remember Glenn Foley?
No, I don't. That sounds...
You don't remember Glenn Foley? Look up Glenn Foley if you have an internet there. I would think Glenn Foley might have thrown the ball to Wayne Krebet quite a bit. I think Glenn Foley went to Boston College, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, born in 1970. Seems a little old to be throwing to Wayne Krebet there. Let's see what we got here. From 94 to 98 with the Jets. So maybe that was about right. Seahawks for a year after that. Yeah, Boston College is correct.
That might have been. He might have been thrown to Wayne Krebet.
Okay. All right. Interesting. He threw 12 touchdowns and 16 interceptions in his career. So
stats aren't exactly the most important thing.
Well, that's what I love about the question, right? Because it's not about the most prolific tandem like Brady and Gronk and Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison. It's about your favorite one. Whatever you're latched on to, you're latched on to Wayne Krebet. So it didn't really matter who was throwing it to him. What about from the Gamecock perspective? It's about the same time period for me during the I guess that would be the late 80s, mid to late 80s with Art Monk and Joe Theismann. It's Sterling Sharp and Todd Ellis for me, with a write-in vote for Robert Brooks next with Todd Ellis. What about you?
I would think Blake Mitchell, Sidney Rice was probably. I mean, I thought Sidney Rice was just incredible. He was that first just incredible wide receiver. I mean, Blake Mitchell didn't have a great career at South Carolina, but he did throw a lot of passes to Sidney Rice. I would think. I would think that would probably be it.
Gotcha. I wrote down through the eras all the Gamecock quarterback wide receiver connections.
Well,
and
I guess you got to throw Connor Shaw, Alshon Jeffrey thrown in there as well.
Yep, I've got him actually connected more with Steven Garcia, but you can definitely connect Alshon there. I was going back even further. I was thinking the one that I remember Savell Newton more distinctly with Sidney Rice when Newton made his first start, I think against Florida Atlantic. He he tied the record, I think, for most touchdown passes in a quarterback debut. And I was thinking Blake Mitchell paired up with Kenny McKinley more than Sidney Rice. But
no doubt. Yeah, Kenny McKinley. That's what a sad story that was. Because he got, I still remember, was it, I think it was Mitchell, was it Mitchell that threw the first pass of the Spurrier era to right over the middle to Noah Whiteside's, against, I think it was Central Florida?
It was George O'Leary coaching that team that day.
Yeah.
And the old cock and fire offense, which hadn't looked very good in preseason practice, just boom, right on the scene there. And then it kind of petered out from there that day on that Thursday night game, I guess, on ESPN and Steve Spurrier's debut. But I
remember the debut being just a wide. I remember that was one of the loudest I'd heard Williams-Brice Stadium, being there for that. I guess it was just a perfect pass. I guess it was Mitchell to. I know it was Whiteside that caught it. I think it was Blake Mitchell, it just went bonkers in there. It was like those years of suffering under Lou Holtz of I don't know, this is just not gonna go in the right trajectory. And you were just coming off the fight at Clemson, and then Spurrier just opens it up with that just perfect pass play right over the middle. It was like, man, there were high expectations after that play.
No doubt about it. And that one kind of leads me back to more. You mentioned the Lou Holtz era. I got Dondrell Pinkins. When's the last time you heard that name? It's been a while, right?
All I remember is throwing off the laces. We would not hold the ball on the laces.
Right. But I got him connected to Troy Williamson back in the day. And we can keep going back in the Gamecock football record books or the old programs as we continue on this morning. But let's get your take more on the old College World Series. Have you been checking it out at all? Have you been more Stanley Cup Finals these days?
Oh, I've been definitely more Stanley Cup Finals. But I've been checking out College World Series. The funny thing is that there hasn't been a great game yet in Omaha. Every game's kind of been a blowout in Omaha.
4 runs is the closest game. 4 runs, the closest differential. It's crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, I think I know I heard you talking with Stuart Lake a week or two ago about, Ole Miss. He basically said that they passed the eye test to get in, but it was darn close. I mean, Ole Miss right now looks unbelievable. I mean, they look phenomenal. It's I don't know what it is, because usually Omaha, you've got some great games. I don't know what it's been about where it's at right now with these blowouts, but all in all, I have definitely been watching more NHL than I have been watching College World Series. Although I was upset to see Auburn bow out, because Sonny D was one of the better, more likable players in college baseball recently. He was pretty fun to watch.
And just ripping. I mean, the numbers are silly, what he's done at Auburn, what he did at Auburn this year, and a heck of a run by Auburn. But it's just a SEC bottleneck. Then you got Oklahoma,
which will be SEC. Yeah, no doubt about it. It's interesting. I always think, to me, the one program that has no excuse not to be just the top of the heap every year is Arkansas. They just have so many facility things and great fan support and everything like that. So I've always thought Arkansas is just a really, really good program to be. I think Van Horn's a really good coach, and I like, I've always just, not that I like Arkansas, I'm indifferent towards Arkansas, but I always see them as being what should be the elite program year in, year out, and to see them performing quite well.
I saw a social media post. You know, they were the number 1 seed, I think, going into last year's tournament. Didn't even make it to Omaha. NC State upset them in a super regional. This year it was Tennessee, the number 1 seed. That's one of the craziest stats, I think, out there. 1999, the last time the number 1 overall seed's gone on to win the national championship in baseball.
Yeah, baseball's a weird game like that. And I think baseball gods and baseball karma catch up to you every once in a while. And it certainly happened with Tennessee this year. You know, you want to act like a moron enough, and, you know, baseball gods, baseball karma, whatever you want to call it's going to catch up to you. And I think it certainly did. I don't think you're going to see them acting as, you know, asshole-ish as you might expect.
But wait a second, you're an energetic, exuberant kind of guy. You don't.
I
don't
am.
take the bat.
I don't throw the old one finger salute though at, you know, people who are, you know, watching me.
Well, that was ridiculous. That's what set me over the line against them. Like, I'm all for a team being brash and confident and having swagger, you know, that old Steve Spurrier kind of mindset. But that was the absolute ridiculous part. And then, like, no remorse. Like, hey, that's who we are. Hey, it was just a kid being excited. Huh? What? That doesn't make any sense at all, man.
Yeah, no, my kid can get excited all they want. If they start flashing the bird to a group of people, they're not going to be so excited anymore.
I'm with you on that completely. All right, so now we got Texas A&M, Oklahoma at 2:00 today. Arkansas, Ole Miss at 7:00. I repeat that because have you seen this Arkansas Ole Miss sub story? I'm sure you've seen it out in Omaha on the social media. The Jello shot challenge.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's very impressive. I would think that your friend Brian Glynn would be very proud of that. The bar tabs that they are running up, needless to say.
It is insane. First of all, $4.50 for a Jello shot individually. And they are getting orders of like 500 at a time and keeping tally on the chalkboard, which I remember seeing out in Omaha. I think the last time I was there was 2012. Do you ever remember seeing that? Maybe they haven't been doing it quite that long, but this is something that, you know, bars are smart to do. But
I've only been to Omaha once, and I was there in 2002, the old Johnny Rosenblatt Stadium, and I was not of age to be. I was 19 years old or 18 years old. I was not of age to be drinking Jello shots my one time in Omaha. So I do not remember it. But that was also 21 years ago. I do not remember it, or 20 years ago. I do not remember the Jello shot board, but it is incredible. It's funny, as we bring it back to hockey, somebody compared that to the bar. Have you ever seen online the bar tab that the Boston Bruins ran up the night that they won the Stanley Cup?
No.
It was amazing. $156,000 was the bar tab. Somebody printed out the receipt, the bar tab, the night that they won the cup, and it was $156,000. It was incredible. I mean, you throw a couple of bottles of ridiculously expensive champagne on there for sure, but $156,000, a lot of money, dude.
Wow.
In any capacity.
No doubt about it. And all this money being poured into this one specific bar out there. I think it might be a 2-bar combo. But yesterday I saw like it's actually going to a good cause too. The bar owners just put out a note. Did you see the note?
No, I didn't see the note from the bar owners.
He said, basically, thank you, especially to the 2 fan bases in Arkansas and Ole Miss that are continuing to drive this thing. And as a token of their appreciation, for every shot they have sold now, which is $4.50, they're going to donate $2 to the food pantries to each of those college towns there in Fayetteville and in Oxford. Almost half of the proceeds are going to help homeless or hungry people in both of those college towns. So, I mean, you talk about a feel-good story. There it is.
That's great. Yeah, it's great. That's I guess that lends itself to some sports reporter from one of those 2 towns, taking Jello shots on the air. If nothing else, it certainly lends itself to an active stand-up there.
So Jason with us on the quarterback connection. He goes, everything all right there, Scotty, by the way? He just said you're
good. I'm almost home. I can, I'm almost at the point where I can actually look at the screen.
Very calm driver. He's impressed with your calmness. Are you typically a calm driver? Or is this an on-camera calm driver, dude?
No, this is typically how I drive. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm in my neighborhood now, so it's not like, I know the roads quite well, but, you got to look out for golf carts, people, whatever else is going on. So, I try to, I'm not going to look at the camera, but I do know the terrain, if you will. I do know I know it like the turns of Darlington. I know it, I know it like the rights and the lefts at Watkins Glen.
As long as you're not putting the racing stripe on the car, you're going to be good to go.
Yeah, no Darlington stripe here. No Carolina-based stripe here on the vehicle.
Jason is a Vikings fan, so he went Culpepper and Moss as far as the connection. That's a good one, huh?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, Randy Moss is a great one. I mean, there's so many you can go to over the years. I don't think of Culpepper when I think of. It's funny when I think of the Vikings, you don't think of Culpepper, but he did have a nice career, and Randy Moss was incredible. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the one we forgot was Aikman to Irvin was certainly one that we forgot.
Yeah, that would be my least favorite quarterback connection, I think, being a Redskins guy and watching that, and having come to Michael Irvin from the Gamecock perspective back in 87, 88, where South Carolina goes down to the Orange Bowl, almost pulls the upset. But Irvin is one of the first guys, and now, of course, that's all football is, right? One of the first guys to signal the first down or to celebrate after just a regular catch. And I did not enjoy the antics back in the day. The older I've gotten, the more I've appreciated Michael Irvin, especially for like his honesty and how he analyzes things, how real he keeps it when he's talking on TV. So I've come to really appreciate him later on in life. But as a player, I think I would put him towards the top of the list as like hated guys from my perspective.
Who threw the ball to Terrell Owens when he pulled the Sharpie out and signed? Was it T.O. or was it Chad Ochocinco? I can't remember.
Well, let's see. Well, it was T.O. I don't think maybe he signed it with the football or whatever. He spiked it on the star for sure.
Right.
And I think it was still Steve Young back in the day throwing him those passes. And when we're talking,
was it Ochocinco who pulled the Sharpie out of his sock and signed it?
Yeah, I think that's right. Or I know Joe Horn had a Sharpie like put away there in the touchdown stanchion there, the field goal stanchion. So you're going on the move here, no problems at all.
Look at that. Right now I'm in the house. I'm ready to go. I'm in the house and back to normal on the Wi-Fi. Now you're talking.
Oh, he just hyped it up and it dropped. Just like that. So I'm guessing it switched from I think you switched from the roaming there to the Wi-Fi and dropped out as you were bragging about your connection.
Yeah, but now we're good. We're in. We're back in now. Yeah. And I'm just trying to think of other QB combo. Yeah, it's funny. I just keep going back to the wide receiver, and I have everyone knows the quarterbacks, but I'm having trouble thinking of the quarterbacks who are throwing to those wide receivers. I'm just thinking of iconic wide receivers more than the quarterbacks, which is funny. I don't know why.
Okay, well, I think Gronk's a pretty good example there. I mean, Tom Brady's done it for so long to so many different guys. It makes me think of other tight ends. Where do you put Gronk on the list of best tight ends of all time? Who pops in your mind? Like when I hear best tight ends, Mark Bavaro comes to my mind first.
Mark Bavaro was a great tight end, no doubt about that. New York guy, certainly. Aaron Hernandez? No, I kid.
Oh boy. Tim Tebow. Now he's on fire over there. He's back out of the car. He's in the funny seat.
Yeah. Best tight end ever. I would say Gronk would probably be the best. To me, the best tight end. Thinking about it, yeah, Gronk was a heck of a tight end.
I think Tony Gonzalez.
Ben Coates, wasn't he? Ben Coates a pretty good tight end.
Pretty good. I would not have ever come up with that name in the best list of tight ends. I think Tony Gonzalez's name is probably way up there. What about the Chargers? Who am I thinking of? Antonio
Gates.
There we go. Antonio Gates. Those numbers are really high up there as far as the wide receiver numbers the tight end numbers and pass catching. Those are the ones. Ben Coates. Wow, never would have thought that one. Well done, sir. All right, so that's a tight end comparison. Feel free to throw your tight end names out there right now as we continue to stream on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. We got the video stream nice and steady. So you got a few minutes before
You
the
know
next
who's had talking about Gamecock. You know who's had a great tight end run? Jared Cook has been a long time tight end. I mean, Jared Cook has lasted a long time. I didn't think he'd last that long. I mean, I didn't think he was that. I mean, I just didn't see that one coming, but he's lasted a long time.
Well, he's a great example. Marcus Robinson was the guy back in the day at wide receiver that didn't really have much of a Carolina career, but really was a strong NFL player, or had a longer NFL career than I think a lot of people thought. Troy hits us up, says Kellen Winslow. Not Kellen Winslow the second, but the original Kellen Winslow. I just think of Kellen Winslow the second and his ridiculous locker room antics, being a soldier and the whole thing. Yeah, certainly.
Well, Kellen Winslow. Did you read? Have you read those articles? Not exactly a great roommate on the road.
Oh yeah, is that what his reputation was? That doesn't surprise me a bit. Surprise me a bit there.
Yeah, just Google it.
No, I'll be good with that. What about the latest golf drama? You're in Charleston, big time golf town. The Live Series taking another step with Brooks Koepka joining Patrick Reed, Bryson DeChambeau recently, Dustin Johnson, the headliner. Where you at on it?
I think Abraham Answer joined it last night as well. And perfect symmetry with Brooks Koepka, former Rice Planters champ Brooks Koepka, as we start the Rice Planters today in Mount Pleasant. It's all a perfect symmetry there.
Well done.
No, I mean, I don't blame them for following the money. I think it shows how little these guys really do care about the fans, the fame. I think they're just, self-centered, money-driven guys. I have a lot more respect for a Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy is a guy that, just the way he's been so outspoken against it. I thought that what he said after the RBC Canadian was awesome. I am for the guys that are sticking with the PGA Tour. I don't like, the more I've read about it, the more I don't like, where this money is coming from for the Live Tour. I don't think somebody like Dustin Johnson or somebody like Brooks Koepka really cares. They don't seem to be too socially aware of where the money's coming from or care, and that's fine. I mean, that's good for them that you've got to make that general decision. And if that money is absolutely guaranteed and is going to come to you, then God bless you. You're making a ton of money. And I can't fault you for that. I mean, that's just a decision that you've got to make, and a controversial decision, yes, but you're the one that's going to be living in that mansion that you're going to build.
So should they be allowed to play the majors? I think the Open, the British Open, the latest one to come out to say that, yeah, this year they're allowed in. Obviously, the U.S. Open happened. So, but the question is, moving forward, will the majors keep them out? Will Augusta National keep them out? What do you think? How do you see it playing out?
I don't know how it's going to play out. I don't personally. No, I don't think they should play in the majors. I don't. Although they are not PGA. The USGA runs the U.S. Open and whatnot. Now that I know PGA Championship obviously is the PGA of America. A little different there. I don't know. I think if you're going to make this decision to leave that tour, then no, you shouldn't be playing in those majors. Or if you want to play in the Open, you qualify for the Open. Go qualify for the Open, and I guess I could see that one happening. But I wouldn't. I have no need for the Masters to invite them. And I also think that, I think we talked about it last time. I think ultimately, you're just going to find new favorites on the PGA Tour. There is such a thin margin of difference between the best golfers in the world. This is not like the difference between LeBron James and the worst guy in the NBA. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. There's just such a small difference between the best golfers and and that secondary tier. It's not like, you're going from LeBron James to, whoever it may be at the bottom of an NBA roster.
Right.
There's a huge difference there. Whereas the difference between Brooks Koepka and Mark Hubbard, who got into the PGA Tour event yesterday as his replacement, not a tremendous difference. On certain days, Mark Hubbard will beat Brooks Koepka. There's no doubt about that. If you take a bottom tier NBA guy, whoever it may be, they're not going to be beating LeBron James in a game of one-on-one. I just think there's a bigger difference. So I think you're just going to end up rooting for a new group of PGA Tour golfers who establish themselves on tour as being the best.
Here's why I am more on the other side of this. Because yesterday there was a players meeting with the commissioner and Jay Monahan, right? And what was the story that came out of that? That PGA now is all of a sudden going to have some shortened events and some guaranteed money where there's not a cut and the whole thing. This, to me, was a case of greed on the PGA Tour side as much as it was a case of greed on the other side for guys running to the money. I've seen Kyle Thompson retweeting this, former Gamecock golfer that made it to the tour a little bit, had to won a couple of times on the Korn Ferry Tour. I think it might have been the Nike Tour, the Hooters Tour at one point when he was playing. But it's $6,500 just to go to Q school these days. And the PGA Tour makes you sign up that if you qualify, then you have to be able to financially commit to go to all the PGA Tour events, man. That to me is a really interesting organization that I don't know if any other one out there. I mean, it reminds me of like guys getting drafted and scouts telling them that there's $1,000 involved, and these naive kids saying, "Well, I don't quite have $1,000, but I'll get it to you soon." And then the scouts having to say, "No, we're giving you $1,000." It seems to me that there is some fault on the other side. And the PGA Tour coming off as all sanctimonious, but they all but admitted it, I think. If this actually comes out of that discussion yesterday, they have to make some moves to keep other guys from leaving, and it's because they haven't taken care of them to this point.
Yeah, you have to get guarantees. There's no doubt about that. You have to get guarantees. You have to do that because ultimately, there are a lot of guys on the PGA Tour who are not as rich as you think they are. They haven't had the long sustained success. And like you said, they've got to get themselves from place to place. Number one, you've got to pay out your caddy. I mean, your caddy that's a large expense. You've got a full-time salary attached to you, if lack of a better term. I think guarantees will absolutely help. Guarantees will absolutely help on the weeks of the lesser tour events, the weeks of the John Deere or the one up in Detroit or whatever it may be, those lesser PGA Tour events. Those guarantees are tremendous difference to get them to those tour stops. RBC Heritage is would be an example of it for sure. I think players deserve that because they are putting on a show, whether they win or they don't, or whether they make the cut or not. They are, the RBC Heritage is still making money on the days of the practice rounds and the first two rounds of the tournament that these guys are performing. They deserve money for performing. I do agree with that.
Yeah, and the Pro-Am obligations that they've had that are tied right into these corporate sponsors that, oh, by the way, their money isn't exactly always as clean as we would like to think, and the PGA Tour doesn't come off, in my opinion, as just completely holier than thou like they're talking. So I think,
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I don't think it's the type of blood money that the Saudis are involved in. And that being said, there are no company, it's not like, Enron or some, just ridiculously illegal, entity is sponsoring PGA Tour events. You might not be fully invested in what these companies are, but I think there's enough vetting from the PGA Tour of who is sponsoring events and who is not sponsoring events.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. It's a different deal, no doubt about it. But to play it off as 100% good versus 100% evil is ridiculous. And I don't blame a guy. I mean, the fact that Koepka didn't do it originally is kind of really surprising.
Yeah, it's surprising. But, I mean, I think the blowback on Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson was way, way, way more than Brooks Koepka. Let those guys take the true, realistic blowback. And Koepka's will be forgotten today. I don't think people are going to be talking. He was top story yesterday. I don't think Brooks Koepka is going to be top story again today. Whereas Mickelson, Johnson, those guys, they were top story for more than a day with their decisions.
Sure, but I think ultimately history will show that at least those guys kind of stuck their necks out and weren't afraid, where Koepka just kind of hid in the shadows.
Koepka doesn't care. He doesn't care about history. I don't think he cares about history. He cares about, his money, his golf, and his hot girlfriend / wife or whatever. I don't think he cares.
I'm not saying otherwise. I'm saying that the reputation, not that it was sterling or pristine, he just made it that much more difficult to pull for him, I think, which doesn't surprise me about Brooks Koepka.
I mean, right now, there's not one guy on that tour that's just like easy to pull for. I mean, that's the thing. There's not one guy on there that's just like, that's a really, really likable guy. There's not a Scotty Scheffler on there. There's not a Jordan Spieth on there. There is not a Webb Simpson on there. They're the guys that are just truly easy to pull for. There isn't one of them that I know of on the Live Tour.
Okay, well, it has just started, and so no one has kind of come up through it. So it makes sense to some degree, and a lot of international players filling up the rosters there. I think Lee Westwood has a pretty good reputation overall. He seems like a pretty likable kind of guy.
Yeah, he seems like a likable. Yeah, he seems like a likable enough guy. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think of him in that same vein that I think of those other guys who are just salt of the earth type guys.
Yeah, Jason,
the
good
PGA
point.
Tour run a tour in Red China.
Nope, I think that ended right when COVID hit, but it definitely happened, and the PGA Tour not bringing that up at all these days, all part of, to me, a hypocrisy for sure. But to the level, I guess it is everybody's personal perspective how you look at that thing. I think, Scotty, I know you said the more you read about where the money's coming from on the Live Series and the whole thing, the more you sour on that. I think it's going to go the other way for most of us who are casual golf fans. The more we read about what the PGA Tour and the details are and how they've been running things, I think maybe that will help to fill out some of these guys who made the move and weren't afraid. A guy like Phil Mickelson, basically, who challenged the norm there and stuck his neck out and took a bunch of heat for it, obviously. But will be interesting to see for sure how this thing comes off and how long is it going to live? No pun intended. How long do you think?
I think they've got the unlimited funds. It's just how long they want to run it for. This is not a situation of the AAFL or the XFL or I don't know, the Global Basketball Association back in the day. This is not the case of they're not going to be able to pay the bills. I think they'll be able to pay the bills as long as they want to do that. I think the question is how long they want to do it. If they are involved in this whole sport washing thing, then I really don't think that they care how many people are truly invested, although I guess sport washing doesn't really work if people aren't watching it at all. I think the big part of thing, as a golf, you're going to get those diehard golf fans, but ultimately golf fans love the majors, and if you don't have established majors, which you will never have, I mean, your majors, you can call them a major if you want, but it will never have the ring of the PGA, the US Open, the Masters, and the British. I mean, it won't have that ring because they don't have that history, that established history. So if you don't have the majors, I just think there's a cap on how popular your tour will ever be.
Right, but if you have a guy from your tour winning those majors,
that's an interesting scenario. That's an interesting scenario that I don't know what do you think of that whole situation? I do not know. I certainly don't think that you're ever going to see a live major being a big deal. But yeah, you're right. If a live golfer wins a major with the PGA Tour golfers, that's an interesting scenario.
To me, the Masters has all the power here, and it will be a tremendous swinging point in this deal. If the Masters comes out and says, nope, not allowed, even the past champions no longer allowed to play at Augusta National because I'm sure they would wave the flag of American patriotism and the PGA Tour and the whole thing because of the long-standing relationship, then I think that is a serious blow to the Live Series. And then the other majors feel the pressure to kind of rewrite the rules, I think, and come out as strongly against them as they can. But you don't see that happening, and that's the vibe I'm getting.
I mean, to me, it's crazy. I couldn't imagine what the behind the doors meetings at Augusta National with the members are like. I'm sure in that room you've got some just filthy rich, just disgusting how they made that money guys. You're going to have that group, no doubt, because they belong to Augusta National. You're also going to have Condoleezza Rice in that. I couldn't imagine Condoleezza Rice wanting to put her stamp of approval on a Saudi-backed tour. I mean, there is a large difference of opinion in that room. So I'm interested to. I mean, you'll never know what's said in that room, but I'm interested to know what is said in that room for sure.
Yeah, and which way they go, and then how they do it. Because I feel like the U.S. Open came out and said, well, we can't really rewrite the rules at this point, so you guys can play. British Open, kind of the same deal, but that doesn't mean it'll be that way for 2023. And that's going to be the first major, obviously, with the Masters. And so when they come out, how that deal gets made one way or the other, fascinating to me. And
I mean,
feel like they probably deal with billions of dollars, billions, one way or the other.
And frankly, I don't think the people that belong to Augusta National are, as a whole, the most likable group of people. They sound like the stuffiest, most just elitist group, which they are. I mean, they belong to Augusta National, but I think it's interesting because they have changed over the years by accepting women into the club and whatnot. I wonder how much they're willing to change and how much they're willing to adapt to the world climate right now. But I don't know what the right answer is and what they're going to do. I really don't. That's a tough situation to be in. It's a situation I'd like to be in. I'd like to be a member at Augusta National, but not something I ever will know what it's like.
And your vote, hypothetical Scotty Eisberg as a member, a green jacket holder at Augusta National, would be to keep those guys out, huh?
Yeah.
See, my vote would be to bring them in for sure. Bring them in. To me, they're kind of what I just saw at the U.S. Open. It's better to play your way to irrelevance than to make more of I think they would be made more of. It'd be easy for guys to pop on their own little live stream while a U.S. Open or British Open is going on. They're being banned from it and say, yeah, I know I could shoot a couple of shots better than this guy who's leading. Let me tell you why.
There's something to be said about the pressure of that, though. I mean, there's no doubt, I mean, it would be, I think the whole game would be changed if that Matt Fitzpatrick or Brooks Koepka comes off of that, not Brooks Koepka, Will Zalatoris comes off that situation and says, I'm going to live, that changes the whole, somebody who literally is just coming off a major and then jumps over to the other. I think that would change the climate of the whole thing.
Well, to me, it's already changed, right? Dustin Johnson's 38 years old. So him being the first headliner, it wasn't that huge of news just because he's on the back end of his career for sure. Phil Mickelson at 52, no doubt. I mean, just the fact that he won down there at Kiowa last year was ridiculous and a great story in the whole thing, but he's on his way out to the sunset, right?
Right.
And then all the international guys, they're way up there in age, Westwood and Poulter and Graham McDowell. To me, it's really easy for those PGA Tour guys to say, yeah, we didn't really miss anybody, maybe DJ a little bit. But then when DeChambeau and Reed and now Anser and Koepka, those guys, they got a lot of good years left for the most part. I get it. There's some injuries involved, and that's the word around.
Well, the question will ultimately be when or if the Live folds, the PGA Tour accept them back with open arms.
Oh, it definitely won't be with open arms, but it will be fascinating to see what kind of long-term effects the PGA Tour happens here. I'm not one of those guys. I was reading an article on The Athletic yesterday, and they were asking how much on a scale of 1 to 10 is the PGA Tour in trouble here. To me, it's not that. This is I guess you can see it as a threat, but I don't see it as going to diminish the tour at all. I feel like this is a chance to almost reestablish dominance and do it in a way to get more people in, as opposed to feel like you're going to be losing fans.
Yeah, and golf's a different sport because there's just a lot of money in golf. There just is a lot of money. I mean, when you look at the general popularity of the LPGA Tour, how many golfers on the tour can you name? A couple. They're still getting huge money. You still, you win the U.S. Women's Open, you still win a huge purse. So there is money floating around in the game of golf, and I think there is enough to spread it around because I think enough people like to watch golf and enough rich people like to sponsor it.
I saw some stats going by on Ticker yesterday, how some LPGA money has tripled in the last decade. Some of those purses in the majors. That is crazy for sure. Let's get back to the football conversation, if you don't mind, with the news of Gronk retiring yesterday. Or do you need to head to your second camp today? Or you're good?
I got 5 more minutes. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. Hey, Abby, are you dressed? All right, they're dressed. Yeah, they're dressed. So I got 5 more minutes. I'm good.
All right, so I know Wayne Corbett was your guy. You come up with any other QB connections out of there, especially maybe from the college standpoint, because that's a fantastic one to remember too. Like you mentioned Michael Irvin.
I forgot was Jake Delhomme, Steve Smith.
Okay, that's a great one from the Panthers standpoint for sure. I think that would have to be the favorite QB connection for longtime Panthers fans. I don't know what else would be up there. Maybe Wesley Walls and Jake Delhomme. Speaking of really good tight ends back in the day, trying to think of more college ones through the years that have stuck and been really, really good. That one's more difficult for me. What about on the Clemson side? Charlie Whitehurst, did he have a favorite target? Aries Curry is the name that pops up in my head, but I don't know.
Richland Northeast guy, right? Wasn't Aries Curry Richland Northeast guy?
Maybe it was
Aaron Kelly. I remember being a real tall, lanky guy. Aaron Kelly.
Good call. That would probably be the Whitehurst connection. It's probably Rod Gardner and who was his connection?
Whitehurst.
Yeah.
Gardner would have been. Was that Woody Dantzler?
Yep, Woody Dantzler for him. Trying to think of some more around college football.
Kyle Parker would have been the next quarterback, or no, Cullen Harper. It would have been Cullen Harper next, right? After Whitehurst would have been Cullen Harper.
And then Kyle Parker. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, CJ Spiller did catch some balls out of the backfield, if I'm not mistaken.
That was one I wanted to put on my list. Kurt Warner to who am I thinking about there?
Marshall Faulk.
Yeah, Marshall Faulk, even though obviously he had great wide receivers as well, and Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. But the way that Marshall Faulk kind of changed CJ Spiller was maybe the college version of that several years later. Yeah, that's a solid connection for sure.
And then you go on, and obviously Deshaun Watson, Hunter Renfrow will go down as I mean, they won a national championship, so I think that connection will certainly be there. Trevor Lawrence, no doubt about it, will go down for what he did at Clemson, and any of the wide receivers, T. Higgins, Justin Ross, whoever.
Right.
Whoever you want to say,
hey, since you brought him up, I know you had the strong opinion about Deshaun Watson last time we spoke. Where are you with the latest news? 20.
I can't stand him. I can't stand him. I cannot stand him. I just think he, because I think since the last time we spoke, he had that, that opportunity to, I don't know, apologize, but he just went full unapologetic about it, completely unapologetic about it. Well, now if you've settled 20 of the 24, you've admitted there's some sort of a wrongdoing, because you wouldn't, if there wasn't a wrongdoing, then you wouldn't settle. now there is wrongdoing, and the fact that you've gone on the record several times and just, but yet nothing happened. That's wrong. I mean, to me, I will never pull for Deshaun Watson ever. Will never pull for him. It's just my opinion. But that's just the way I feel, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. And I think part of it too is the fact that I have two daughters. Like, I have two daughters. I have two girls. I am sympathetic to the female cause even more now with two girls of my own. And I just don't think he's a good dude at all. I think he has gotten away with this squeaky clean image, and he shouldn't have.
Well, where do you see it going now from the NFL perspective? Because what I saw yesterday is that these suits settling these things have absolutely nothing to do, no bearing on potential discipline, and there are 4 left out there, and the attorney says he's planning on taking those to court. So it's not like
and more can come about. I mean, more. There's no, the statute of limitations. There's more can come about. If there was 60 of them. Now, I would assume that you'll see more now that he's settled with 20, that other ones might want to come out of the woodwork and fall in line there.
So what do you think? Or is Deshaun Watson going to play for the Cleveland Browns this year?
I don't think this year. No, I don't think this year. I don't think this year he'll play. I just think it would be too bad of a look for the NFL. It's not worth it for them. Deshaun Watson is not the number one draw in the league. If it was Patrick Mahomes, maybe it's a little different. Or if it was somebody who truly was bringing a ton of eyes to the NFL. I don't think Deshaun Watson is at that level yet.
Wow, I think he's top 5. He was top 5, I think, last time I saw him on the field. I think he's way up there. I think the NFL's in a brutal position here. Deshaun Watson's in
Brady is still 1. Brady is still 1. Patrick Mahomes is 2. I still think Russell Wilson is a big draw in that league. Aaron Rodgers for sure. There are enough guys that the league will move on. The league will go on without Deshaun Watson.
Oh, no doubt about that. And then you got the Browns situation of, I hear now the latest in the Baker Mayfield deal is that they're willing to pay half, maybe $9 or $10 million of his contract to get him out of Cleveland, and they still want to move him out even with the situation. What
Crazy.
A mess.
Yeah, total mess. Classic Cleveland Browns situation.
No, this is a different level, man. We've never seen this before. Couldn't make it up.
No, you're right about that. So.
All right, man. We'll let you go on those sentiments with the daughters and a big camp day. Thanks for hopping in on the program. Appreciate it, Scott.
All right. See ya. All right. Bye.
Scotty Eisberg down in Charleston on all sorts of subjects, as he is wont to do. Scotty did a story yesterday, actually, about a Goose Creek high school football player who unfortunately passed away in jail, I think, recently. But he happened to be the guy that cost Goose Creek, I think, a state championship, or when they got kind of kicked out of the state playoffs a decade ago, and talked to their head coach, Chuck Reedy, and the whole thing. You can check Scotty out on Twitter, S. Eisberg. I'll get the handle for you specifically here, but a story worth watching. And Scotty can always find a story. He has always been that guy from the time he was an intern for me way back in the day. S. Eisberg, WCIV, where you can find Scotty on Twitter if you want to check out his TV work at WCIV down in Charleston. So got a couple of more connections. Young to Rice, Garcia to Alshon, and Rattler to Van coming in from Dakota on Twitter today, talking about quarterback connections. And to me, it's all about favorite ones, right? Good morning to you too, Hope. Favorite quarterback, receiver, or pass catcher connections is really what it is. Joe Montana and Dwight Clark back in the day, probably a favorite one. Marino to the Marks brothers is a great one from Jason, Mark Duper and Mark Clayton, and that's about the same time I was going with my money favorite quarterback connection of Joe Theismann and Art Monk back in the late 80s in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers to Jordy Nelson, where Troy's going, a good one for sure. And Troy also wanted to make sure we knew if Randy Moss would have had the head on him and work ethic that Jerry Rice had, he would be the best receiver in NFL history, in my opinion. Well, a lot of people think he's right there. And it was just a different dude, right? Coming at it at a different way. And yeah, Jerry Rice, legendary for all the work that he did and pretty pristine as far as reputation goes. They're just different guys in so many ways. You know, Randy Moss committing to Florida State, not being able to go out of West Virginia, and then going through Marshall, and seemed to always have stuff following him, right? In a lot of ways, like Allen Iverson. I think I equate those two guys, just two of the greatest of all time, but always had other stuff surrounding them. Jason says, Scott is always entertaining. Yes, he is, Jason, for sure. Rolling into hour number 2 here this morning. Thanks for joining us, especially with the new time, moving things up to 8 to 10 in the morning, streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, the video portion. The audio portion, you can catch us on Podbean live, and then on the podcast platforms all over the place after the show ends at 10 o'clock these days. So from the Gamecock perspective, nothing overwhelming coming out here in the last couple of days. A big weekend set. Saw Shane Beamer tweet that out yesterday, a picture of he and his son. They're going to Dude Perfect up in Charlotte this weekend. But before that, a very important recruiting weekend for the Gamecocks. Looking to nail down some commitments, looking to make sure to keep other commitments, and about a dozen or so visitors, official visitors in this weekend. And that's what it is across college football programs all over the country. Big weekends. The dead period starts, I think, this Monday and will be for about a month or so in the month of July, most of the month of July. So it's June, not quite as much this year as it was last because of coming out of the COVID dead periods for so long, however many months that was, more than a year maybe. And then this year, at least, more of a typical recruiting calendar for the entire year, having things open and options of people coming on campus and the whole thing. And Troy, appreciate that. Am feeling better for sure. Glad to be back at it with you guys and talking the most important, the most interesting topics in the state of South Carolina, coming at it from that angle. And then who knows where it goes from there. Like talking the international golf right now just is what is at the top of the sports world in so many ways, and having Dustin Johnson kind of right there in the middle of it, being an Ermo guy, is extra important. But this SEC dominance at the College World Series, and Troy, I know you're an ACC guy, so I'm sure you don't like hearing this. You don't like seeing it. I think college baseball doesn't necessarily like seeing it because it doesn't expand the game. The Notre Dame story was a great one, and they're having just their shiny, ridiculous gold helmets on. I think just automatically when College World Series games are on in a sports bar or restaurant, you go in, you see a ridiculously shiny helmet like that, you probably tune in to see what exactly is going on. Now it's just pure SEC dominance with Texas A&M and Oklahoma today at 2 o'clock, and Texas A&M having to beat Oklahoma twice to keep the Sooners out of the National Championship Series, and Arkansas thumped Auburn last night 11-1. Now they're going to have to beat Ole Miss twice to keep the Rebels out of the National Championship Series. So you got that, the SEC kind of keeping it exclusive to the southeastern portion of the country, or SEC fans in a lot of ways. And then you have no good games out there. 4 runs is the closest game that we've had at the College World Series to this point. So from that standpoint, a bit of a stinker so far out in Omaha. But plenty of baseball left. And especially knowing that neither one of the teams that are in the driver's seat right now, or even in the top 16 teams going into the tournament, a possibility for an upset story to brew or a comeback through the losers bracket for Arkansas and Texas A&M. We'll see. I'm hoping there's some drama left. I'm hoping there's plenty of good games left. Maybe they were saved for the Final Four here. And today will tell us a lot about that, right? If we get Oklahoma and Ole Miss rolling today, then, man, it's been a really ho-hum College World Series. But if we get a couple of those teams that won yesterday, at least one of those teams that won yesterday, rolling through and getting a big win, they have the momentum. Sometimes that happens at the College World Series. Not that Ole Miss and Oklahoma don't, having rolled to this point. Ole Miss is 7-0, a perfect 7-0. in NCAA tournament play. I think Oklahoma did have to come through the losers bracket in Gainesville to knock off Florida. So they're not perfect, but man, they're the way they're doing it. Their confidence is sky high, and Texas A&M. If Texas A&M and Oklahoma today doesn't get in the double digits, I will be surprised. If one team doesn't get in the double digits, especially with the suspect defense that Texas A&M plays, with the way that Oklahoma's been hitting it, with the way that A&M hits it, see that as an absolute slugfest. And then Arkansas put up 11 last night. Ole Miss has been smashing the ball, but they've been really pitching it. So I see that one as more of a traditional baseball score, maybe a 6-4 game. Maybe we can get a relatively close game out of those guys. If you're a Braves fan, it was a slugfest last night with the San Francisco Giants. Matt Olson turned on one in the ninth, 99-mile-an-hour high up and in fastball to a lefty. He got to it and smashed it down the line. 2-run homer in the ninth last night to cut it to 12-10, but that's as close as the Braves made it. The Mets, fortunately, losing for Atlanta last night, so the Braves still 5.5 games back in the big leagues there. The headlining news yesterday, far and away, even with Rob Gronkowski retiring, well, we've already seen that before, and he's still kind of leaving the door, like if Tom Brady calls in the middle of the season, maybe I'll come back. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. And this is kind of who Gronk is, right? He's just kind of that guy. Yeah, I can't really take you too seriously, Gronk, what you're saying. Great player. One of the best of all, ever, if not the best tight end ever. But, you're always kind of that guy. Party guy. If you have fun the next few months, you don't have to do training camp, you get a call later on, you're in relatively decent shape, give it a shot. Wouldn't be shocked at all to see Gronk back in the NFL. But this Koepka thing, especially, man, from a PR perspective, it could not be a worse look for anyone than Brooks Koepka after last week's challenging, might be the way to say that, challenging press conference. Like he maybe condescending press conference, just when asked about the Live Series, that guys, I'm tired of the conversation. I think it's disrespectful. It's throwing a black cloud over the U.S. Open. And then the next week turns, maybe he knew. If he knew that he was going to do this, I would think you would take the opposite tact that he took last week. Like last week, it almost sounded like he was standing up for the PGA Tour and strongly against the Live Series and the whole thing. Maybe I gave him too much credit. I don't know. But the fact that he's doing this a few years younger than Dustin Johnson, age-wise, and seemingly with plenty of good golf in front of him. I get it. There are injury concerns for he and Bryson DeChambeau, and you'd much rather take guaranteed money as an athlete than have the opportunity to not continue to play at the same level you've played at the same ridiculously high level that Koepka's played out, at least in the majors. Bryson DeChambeau has been there as well. So I completely understand. Again, these guys taking it. I just don't understand Koepka coming at reporters last week for asking him about the Live Series and then try to minimize it and then turn right around and then hop on that Live Series and to do it when he's done it. So someone hit me up last night and mentioned that Phil Mickelson first stuck his, maybe it wasn't hit me up. I think it was Don on Twitter say that Mickelson originally stuck his neck out for the Ryder Cup for changes to be made and took heat for it. Now did it for the PGA Tour and the Live Series. And I think history will be kinder to Phil Mickelson certainly than things have been here recently. And the fact that the tour just has a meeting yesterday, and the reports out of that meeting, they're basically going to do some of the things that the Live Series is doing. To me, it's an acknowledgement of an abuse of power to some degree, or a feel of being threatened by a league that has some different rules and some different enticements for players that are, again, I come at this thing from the unrestricted free agent part and say, from the players, I don't blame them a bit. I get it if you're saying political implications and the money behind it, and how could you just put aside legacy and be disloyal to a tour that has helped you become who you are? Yeah, there's that. No doubt about it. And I'm always one that says you should live up to your obligations. You sign up, then you got to see it through. But to put yourself in these guys' situations with all the guaranteed money put at them, and the fact that they can play in those majors still, the fact that the PGA Tour didn't really, I don't think, work with guys. They took the hard line like, hey, if you want to go, great, but you're going to be banned. And we're not going to change the way we do business, because a lot of these guys got to the point in their careers where they are a very valuable commodity, and they understand that. And when you get to that point, no matter where you are in life, right, whether it's in business, whether you're the most valuable sales guy, most valuable employee at your company, whatever it is, it is your obligation to maximize your value. And that's what these guys are doing. When you got Tiger Woods as a billionaire, he's a different stratosphere. But the fact that Phil Mickelson, right under that, I think that's kind of an American thing, isn't it? That we pull for those who challenge authority, who push the envelope and make things better for employees or independent contractors, which is basically what golfers are. And that's part of this conversation. And Trey says, yeah, I would argue, yes, self-employed. It's just that when you sign up for the PGA Tour, you also, I didn't realize, and that this is part of the reason why I appreciate this Live Series as well, and appreciate a guy like Kyle Thompson, who's been there on the ground, former Gamecock golfer who unfortunately didn't quite have enough success to continue the golf career and ended up getting out of it, despite having won multiple times on the Korn Ferry tours. But they've raised the price of just participating in Q Series, $6,500. And then you got a sign in there that if you do qualify for the tours, then you have to be able to financially back yourself. You can't say, hey, I don't have enough money to enter all these tournaments, to go travel all over the country and stay for 5 nights in Poughkeepsie or wherever the Korn Ferry tournament's going to be in Evansville, Indiana, and then drive down to Texas or fly down to Texas and play the next week and the whole thing. Well, these guys are really getting into the weeds now. Trey says smarter to incorporate an LLC, since you'll then have a caddy at minimum working under you. Yeah, I'm sure these golf guys, they've got it working from the business standpoint for sure. But when you are Brooks Koepka, when you are Phil Mickelson, even I guess Abraham Answer to some degree, that was another surprising one, a relatively young guy, seems to be up and coming, and made the move to the Live Series yesterday. Like, that guaranteed money, man, is really difficult to turn down. The fact that in my lifetime that the NFL has turned to so much guaranteed money is the largest sign to me how the balance of power shifted over to the players much more fairly than it previously was. There's still tons of guys in the NFL are one injury away from barely cashing in on their lifetime dream. And those stories don't get told nearly enough, because we all see the astronomical salaries attached to a guy like Deshaun Watson and $230 million, and he's on all this other trouble and the whole thing. It's really easy, I think, for me anyway, to be sour from the player standpoint. But for the golf deal, it is such a grind to work your way up to the PGA Tour for the vast majority of golfers. Now, some of these guys, Will Zalatoris, barely out of Wake Forest, right? Bryson DeChambeau almost instantly out of SMU. They're right there in the mix on the PGA Tour. They're good. But these other guys who, even a guy like Kyle Thompson who won on these lower tours, but still it wasn't financially viable to continue. Those stories don't get told so much. That's not part of the PGA Tour's PR pitch, right? That doesn't include all the millions of dollars that they've donated to charity and the whole thing, which is a legit part of the PGA Tour's image. I'm not trying to knock it. I'm just saying, don't insult me and think that I think it's all rainbows and lollipops and airbrushed slow-mo shots of your PGA Tour members doing pro-ams for kids or raising money for charity. It's not all that. That's all. And so that's why I like competition. That's why that's an American value, competition. And I get it that the Saudi Arabian money attached to the Live Series couldn't be much more negative in 2022. It couldn't come from a much more negative source. And the idea of sports washing, I think, is ridiculous. And I certainly don't want to support that. But at the same time, monopolies aren't American. And the PGA Tour being the only option out there doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't think this Live Series is going to be long-lived. I don't think it's going to be a major competitor of the PGA Tour. I don't think the PGA Tour is in trouble. But I do think they underestimated the lure of guaranteed money, less of a time commitment, and the fact that some guys are more valuable to golf than golf is to them at this point in their careers. Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson. I don't know about Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka because of how young those guys are. But clearly that's the decision they came to, and wow. Never saw this coming like this. I thought this Live Series would be one of those XFL or USFL deals where it popped up, made some noise, didn't work. Trey says he disagrees about the longevity of the Live Series. Hey, I wouldn't mind seeing it stick around for a while. I find it hard to believe with all the money involved that we won't get some kind of compromise here, that we won't see some sort of meeting in the middle where guys can play on the PGA Tour. They will be allowed, 5 events a year, something like that, on this other series maybe. Or you can't get a PGA Tour event. No, they've had golf in Dubai for a long, long time. Golfers have gotten paid money, guaranteed money to go over there and play it. I guess the idea of that combining with where these Live Series guys are right now could not be more ridiculous. And maybe there is no compromise in there. I don't know. We'll see. Kind of pulling for Ole Miss, Troy says, because NC State should have been in over them. So in a strange way, that's how I'm still pulling for NC State. I'm with you on that, man. I'd love to see Ole Miss win this thing. And great story on social media yesterday. Mike Bianco, and I know we've had Stuart Lake, the former Gamecock assistant, former Charleston Southern head coach, who actually is a former Ole Miss assistant as well, for Mike Bianco. Fortunate enough to have Stuart on a bunch here recently. He's got the great story about the foam finger, and well, Bianco couldn't quite see him using the foam finger to shift outfielders over, and he was giggling about Bianco coming over, saying, "Good job moving the outfielders over." Love it. But The first one I saw on social media, and this was coming from excerpts off the season that I think maybe HBO did or ESPN did. I guess it was an ESPN thing, just a documentary series around Ole Miss baseball. The first Mike Bianco story, and it's a kind of an odd deal. Maybe it's a deal exclusive to baseball that you can talk to your team on the field before a game as long as you do. Like, he just starts telling a story to his entire team in the huddle, which you got the pregame music going usually at the stadium. And baseball rosters are pretty big, 30 guys-ish involved. So for everybody to be able to hear, maybe it was more for a camera thing. I don't know. But the first one that I saw on social media was about a teacher and a student. And it's a great story that Mike Bianco goes on. I'm pretty sure I retweeted it, Tim Hill UFA on Twitter. And I'm sure you could probably just search on social media right now, Ole Miss baseball teacher, maybe. And it's like a 7-minute, I think it goes on for about 7 minutes, telling the story about a teacher and her struggles with a particular student. But she came to find out that I think it is his mother that passed away recently, and went on to be kind of the favorite student and really influential in this student's life. And so that was the first one that I saw that, man, you just can't watch without getting attached to, or at least I couldn't. And then yesterday it was, "Who packs your parachute?" Which is a great line. It's a great slogan. The story was, there was a veteran that was eating in a restaurant in Kansas City, and this guy had been a Top Gun fighter jet pilot who got shot down in Vietnam and was in a prison camp for 6 years, and had someone, he obviously survived it and was back, and years later was seeing someone staring at him at a restaurant and asked him if he kind of looked familiar. And he said, "Yeah, you were a commander or a lieutenant so-and-so." And, "Oh yeah, how do you were on the fighter, you were on the ship, the same ship that I was, and I packed your parachute." And how obviously the parachute saved his life, but he never thought about the importance of the person packing the parachute. And Mike Bianco using this basically to say, you didn't get here on your own. You didn't get to Ole Miss baseball on your own. You didn't get to be an SEC baseball player on your own. You had a lot of people helping you along the way. Make sure you remember who packed your parachute. It is a phrase that I will definitely repeat, steal, and try not to completely use as my own, but I think it's a great, catchy phrase to remind us about the impact so many other people have had in our lives, and to remember it's not all about us. A lot of you guys getting in on the College World Series discussion there on the live chat. Ole Miss or Arkansas? Dave Van Horn deserves a College World Series, Trey says. Craig says, "I did pick Arkansas. Can't believe I haven't jinxed them yet." And yeah, the Jello shot count, man, it is massive. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, Trey, probably before you hopped on. But the latest development out of that, so there's a bar. I think there might be 2 bars connected out in Omaha. Just put up a board, a little chalkboard, a tally board of all 8 schools. And then if you order a Jello shot, you say, "All right, which school are you supporting? We're going to put you down. We'll add it up." And Ole Miss and Arkansas have completely demolished the competition. And as a token of their appreciation, the bar put out a note. The owners of a bar put out a statement saying they're going to send $2 of the $4.50 Jello shot, so almost half of the money they made off of this thing, to food pantries in both of those college towns in Ole Miss and Arkansas. Fantastic. I think it's 5,011 Jello shots total. Is that what you're saying, Craig? I think that's what he's saying. And it's something absurd. Absolutely absurd. I'm hopeful we're going to get some decent games. SEC domination, and then teams running away in Omaha. No late comebacks, no late inning drama that we really got, especially from the Gamecock perspective, several times out there. The Virginia games, Florida games pop in my mind. Oklahoma in 2010, down to the last strike with Jackie Bradley Jr. bouncing back. Craig says he was just kidding. So unfortunately, 4 runs is the closest margin of victory we've gotten out in Omaha this year. Hoping to see that get a lot closer in the Final Four now, which is Texas A&M and Oklahoma, 2:00 today. Oklahoma with the position of strength there. Texas A&M will have to beat them twice to keep them out of the national championship series, and it's Ole Miss in that same driver's seat on the other side of the bracket. Arkansas coming off an 11-1 win last night against Auburn, ending that Cinderella run, but clearly the SEC dominance is there with 3 out of the Final 4 teams, and Oklahoma headed to the league. Crazy. Especially this year when you had the defending national champs finish last in the league. I know the Gamecocks have not been national championship contenders here in the last several years, but it was just a decade ago that they were playing for their 3rd straight national championship. Vanderbilt wasn't a Vanderbilt-like team for most of the year. Florida struggled at the beginning as well, but then made a late run to a regional seed. So just a crazy kind of year for college baseball in a lot of ways. And then Trey says, when Texas joins the SEC, do we get to claim their College World Series titles as SEC titles? No, Trey, don't be that guy. You do get to claim them once they join the league, but you can't go back and take them. I don't think the SEC even needs it at this point. And read an article recently about Greg Sankey going out and witnessing the College World Series for the first time early on in the first few games, and just the SEC representation, especially with Arkansas and Oklahoma, Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league. Arkansas and Ole Miss is what I'm reading right in front of me, like a dummy. But with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league, and I think it was Oklahoma who's going to have a big facilities upgrade. They're talking about Texas maybe doubling the capacity of their stadium. Just an absolute super league right now set up for the SEC. Maybe a good time to talk about the football scheduling and possibly changing that thing. Maybe 9 games this year or upcoming with Texas and Oklahoma jumping into the league. Asked former Gamecock assistant coach G.A. Mangus recently about the idea of playing 9 conference games. He gave a great answer. I think all of us from the outside looking in totally endorse this answer for G.A. Mangus. Let you hear that. Take a quick break. Be right back after this. It's Tim Hill, unrestricted free agent.
I never got any joy beating somebody's ass by 50 points and giving them a paycheck, just to come get a W. I think that's ridiculous. There's a lot more joy, and if you're a competitor, I'd much rather play. Like our 2-year rotation, everybody was complaining, oh man, South Carolina's got Alabama coming up. Well, we gave them a tussle in Tuscaloosa, and then the next year we beat them and beat the hell out of them in Columbia. And that was a lot more fun than playing Kisgee crap.
Reasons to enjoy that answer, right? First of all, it brings you back to the Gamecock days of beating Alabama. But secondly, it's just that competitive spirit that we all love, man. And the fact that SEC head coaches and athletic directors have kind of hid behind we want to have the financial impact on smaller programs. That's really important for them to come get the paycheck and the whole thing. Come on, especially coaches. They just wanted to have another win under the belt. And I'm so glad that at least the Pac-12 has kind of led the way in this 9-game thing. But it looks like the ACC also going to make that move. And then from an SEC perspective, you can't be seen as unwilling to do that. Maybe this is one of the best things that came out of COVID. That 10-game conference only schedule. The fact that Alabama ran through it. Any other naysayers out there that say, hey, anytime a team has played 9 games, hadn't worked out well for them in other conferences? Well, the SEC isn't another conference, right? It is in a league all its own. We're seeing that in baseball right now, but football, we all know. And so I really hope we get to see that 3-6-6 schedule. I'm all but convinced that has been done for a while and was done with ESPN and ABC when they signed the contract months ago. And they saw this thing coming. And it's just a dog and pony show with the SEC meetings and coaches out there. I think maybe they don't know it. I would be surprised if they don't. Maybe they've been told to slow play it and the whole thing. That's the feeling that I get from all this. That the SEC absolutely is going to go to a 9-game conference schedule, 3 permanent opponents, 6 rotating ones, and we're going to get, as fans, you're going to get to see everybody in the league once every 2 years and coming to your stadium once every 4. It's just perfect. Yeah, DC says, sadly, the Gamecocks have paid for a loss a few times lately. I'd rather play all SEC teams instead. Yeah, I mean, and that's the craziest thing, right? That we saw a Will Muschamp-led, Mike Bobo-led offense actually have the most success on the ground that one Gamecock running back has had. And Kevin Harris hit 1,000 yards a couple of years ago in that all-SEC schedule. It was even 12-game schedules. We hadn't seen that since Mike Davis did it back in, 2012? That was crazy. So I think from the Gamecock perspective, even though it was a 2-8 record and the defense was absolutely abysmal, at least you got something to point to and say, hey, it's not all bad. And no doubt the road gets that much more difficult for South Carolina and pretty much every SEC program, maybe not named Alabama at this point, or Georgia. But we got to be the ones from the outside looking in and say, hey, what about the fans? This needs to be about the fans too. It doesn't have to be all about the fans. But the fact that, was it Florida and Texas A&M is the one? I forget which one it is that have barely played since they got in the league. The fact that you barely see some teams in your league, well, what's the point of having a league? And now with Texas and Oklahoma coming in, I think it's only right you have those matchups. Texas and Oklahoma coming to Williams-Brice Stadium for a guy who grew up with the independent days of South Carolina football. It is really unfathomable in a lot of ways. And I know there were some great matchups back in the day, and Carolina went to Notre Dame and Florida State and Nebraska, Michigan. So those games happened. But now to have Oklahoma and Texas in your conference and them coming to Williams-Brice once every 4 years, Texas A&M has already been the permanent opponent coming every other year. It's crazy to me how that has evolved through the years and done so financially, obviously, in South Carolina's favor and every SEC school's favor. Competitively, maybe the other way, but not necessarily, right? Is Texas that much better of a football program right now than South Carolina? I don't think so. I think the results on the field certainly would give Texas the advantage, but not massively by any stretch of the imagination. Oklahoma, yes. They are. But are they that much of a better program than Georgia? Nope, they're not. Georgia's better. Than Florida? Yeah, slightly. But again, that's what it's all about. In the SEC, we're seeing it on the baseball field. And the whole tone of the article I was reading about and telling you guys about a little bit earlier about Greg Sankey going out to the College World Series is that SEC baseball is an amazing example of not just one conference's domination, but that it's not one team continuing to do it. It's not Alabama football. It's the exact opposite, and we couldn't have seen a more drastic example than this year, with Mississippi State finishing dead last in the league coming off a national championship. With other programs that Auburn hadn't won a College World Series game since, 97? There they are last night, even though they're now eliminated. With Ole Miss just heading to their second College World Series, but in the driver's seat right now. Arkansas, been there several times, but not necessarily dominating on a national standpoint. Vanderbilt having cycled through Florida, South Carolina, all the different programs nearly in the SEC. I mean, Auburn was picked to finish last in the SEC West this year. They were one of the last 5 teams standing. Ole Miss barely got in the tournament. 7-0, rolling. 1 win away from the National Championship Series tonight against Arkansas. Wouldn't that be amazing if it translated to SEC football? I get it. They're completely different animals. 11.7 scholarships, 85 scholarships, 85,000 fans. Yeah, at the really good SEC venues, in Arkansas, I think they get 15,000. The money involved, the money generated, no doubt. Apples and oranges, totally. But you're talking about things that fans cling to and talk about. Baseball is very important in the SEC. And if you're not an SEC country, then you don't understand. You don't get it. I mean, the older I get, the more I see that, right? Strong programs out at Oregon State and UCLA and Cal State Fullerton. Trying to think of other ones across the country. Not a ton stick out. I mean, maybe throw Michigan in there here recently. Haven't played for the national title. But Eric Bakic's move down to Clemson, a great example of it just doesn't compare in that area of the country to our area of the country, even though Clemson obviously not an SEC program. If we could get anywhere close to the parity in football that we have in SEC baseball, man, I think college football would just grow that much stronger. Because it's been a struggle with the stranglehold that those few teams, those handful of teams, Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia in there now, those guys have had on the college football playoff. It hasn't been good overall, or maybe it hasn't been best case scenario for sure, is one way to put it. It hasn't been great overall for the growth of college football in the last several years. Now it's better, I think, than the BCS stuff. Certainly better than having teams play in predetermined bowl games and then voting for a champion. It's better for all of that, better than all of that. But it hasn't been as good as what the SEC has done in baseball for sure. So maybe that's asking too much. I don't know. I'm hopeful that name, image, and likeness and transfer portal will actually help parity. You're not playing at Alabama. You look over across the way and say, hey, there's another school right in the conference. They're telling me I'm going to play. They're telling me they're going to take care of me with a strong offer. Let's make that move. I think the opportunity is there. Spencer Rattler at South Carolina shows me the opportunity is there for non-perennial powerhouse programs to get some good players in immediately. Now, the question will be, all right, how much of an impact can they have? And what kind of recipe is that for success? Because that's the thing with all this name, image, and likeness stuff, man. I don't understand the complete, hey, this is definitely going to favor those who have already been dominating in the whole thing. Speaking of domination, Rob Gronkowski, I think, is a good name to equate domination with, announcing his retirement yesterday. Certainly got to be in the conversation for best tight end ever. But it was that is a one you can base on stats, and Tony Gonzalez and Antonio Gates, I think, maybe better numbers. Did it for a little bit longer, so career numbers a little bit better. But the connection between Brady and Gronk, certainly one of the best connections out there. And I can't say connection without bringing up my 7-year-old. That's how he explained his relationship with one of his buddies on his flag football teams. We just have the best connection. So maybe that's where I'm getting this from. maybe that's where my head's at on this thing. But I would like to think it came off of the stat I saw go across the ticker yesterday that only one other quarterback pass catching combination has combined for more touchdowns in NFL history. Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, the only ones to be better than Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski. So it got me thinking about favorite quarterback connections. Mine, from the NFL perspective, was Art Monk and Joe Theismann. Really the first strong one that I remember. I think Jason hit us up a little bit earlier and went with Dan Marino and the Marx brothers, Mark Duper, Mark Clayton, a great one about the same time. Alex just hit us up on Twitter. His top 3 NFL ones: Joe Montana to Jerry Rice, Ben Roethlisberger to Antonio Brown, and Steve Young to Jerry Rice. And he says, honestly, I don't think people appreciate the hit Antonio Brown took to the head in the playoffs against Cincinnati. I truly believe that hit changed his brain, his appearance, attitude, etc. changed. Maybe, man. Interesting. But then that got me thinking about Gamecock connections. And I think that's how I almost remember eras of Gamecock football. I go back from them, and I came to those in the 80s as well. And the first one that I really remember, Todd Ellis to Sterling Sharp. Todd Ellis to Robert Brooks, a close second. So the Ellis to Sharp is 1A in my mind. And then I know it's not exactly right timeline-wise, but I fast forward to Steve Tannehill to Toby Cates was his main guy, certainly that I remember. And there are going to be some years not connected here. I'm going with kind of the general eras just by memory here. So if you want to sports stat nerd me up, you can certainly correct me that actually it was one quarterback or two quarterbacks in between some of these guys. I get it. Then after the Tannehill era, in my mind, it's Anthony Wright. And it was the old A to Z combination there. Anthony Wright to Zola Davis. Then Phil Petty. And I put Brian Scott at first, but then it was more Jamel Kelly in the Phil Petty era that I remember. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Then after that, I jumped to Dondrell Pinkins to Troy Williamson. I put Savell Newton to Sidney Rice, even though I know Blake Mitchell threw a bunch of touchdown passes to Sidney Rice as well. But I connected Blake Mitchell to Kenny McKinley, then jumped to Steven Garcia and Alshon Jeffrey, and then maybe Connor Shaw to Bruce Ellington in my mind, even though there were so many guys. He certainly connected with Alshon a bunch too. Dylan Thompson, Pharaoh Cooper, I think is where I would go next. And maybe Perry Orth to Debo Samuel, even though it might have been a little bit of Jake Bentley and Debo Samuel involved there too. Well, that's kind of how I go through the eras in my head anyway. And so this year sets up as Spencer Rattler to Josh Van. Somebody mentioned that before. Will be fascinating to see how it plays out. Yeah, the single bar classic face mask. Good call, Jason, from Joe Theismann back in the day. Troy goes old school Clemson. Steve Fuller. Kevin Butler, I believe it is. No, Kevin Butler is a kicker. My bad. Fuller to Butler. He says back in the day, please correct me on that, Troy, and sorry to disappoint you there. Just slightly before my time, I think. I was going to say, I did better. I was going to say Malcolm Butler. I was like, no, that's not right at all. Jerry Butler. Thank you. Sorry to cause your blood pressure to rise on that one. We did go through with Scotty Eisberg down in Charleston a little bit earlier. Went through a couple more Clemson connections. It's Deshaun Watson to Hunter Renfrow, number 1, I think. Got to be. But Woody Dantzler to Rod Gardner back in the day. And then Charlie Whitehurst to Aaron Kelly. It's a good one. Scotty helped me out with that one. T. Higgins and Trevor Lawrence, I think. Certainly really good, but there are a bunch of them. Justin Ross and so many guys have come through. But I think this might be like when you come to a certain age in your football fandom, first come to football fandom, what you remember the most favorably. Had a write-in vote for Don Mikowski back in the day to Sterling Sharp, the Green Bay Packers before Brett Favre. Was one of my favorite ones as well. Anytime I can mention the Magic Man, I'm going to do that too. So just something that got me thinking today about favorite connections. Feel free to write those in on Twitter. If you're not catching the live stream, Tim Hill UFA, where you can get those down. We'll get a solid list going. And if it is a really notable one, certainly mention it on the show tomorrow. Really appreciate you guys making the adjustment on the showtime as well on the live stream here from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. That's how we're going to do it moving forward. Start things out a little bit earlier. We stayed up and watched the College World Series game last night. I don't know why I even continued to have it on. It was not close. But maybe it was just the slight chance that we might get a bit of a comeback. The way that Auburn has swung it recently, the way that Arkansas can give up some runs occasionally. I thought we might have a chance, but Arkansas just 11-1, a complete thumping last night. Magic Man is football's Wally Pipp. That's a good one, Troy. Yeah, Don Mikowski goes down with an injury. Brett Favre comes in, and basically was Lou Gehrig, right? He was an Iron Man like Gehrig was. One of the greatest of all time, no doubt. So you're right. Danny White, yeah, used to do the punting for the Cowboys as well back in the day. Crazy. Well done, Jason. Bringing up the old school 80s NFL quarterbacks / punters. I always remember Reggie Roby from that day and how they always talked about him wearing a watch too. And obviously the Dolphins are really good. Maybe that's why you had Marino, a young Dan Marino, throw into the Marx Brothers. Those are the formative days of the NFL for me, for sure. And now the news, do need to bring it up. Unfortunately, the Deshaun Watson stuff. I don't know what to make of it exactly yesterday. I was shocked to see 20 of the 24 suits settled. I mean, I thought that was a massive number. I've never heard of anything like that. I guess I've never really heard of 24 different civil cases against someone for this type of deal. But I guess it made me think that there may have been some sort of plan with the Cleveland Browns and things working behind the scenes to have this resolved by training camp. If you have 20 of them resolved, but a huge problem there in this Cleveland Browns formula for Deshaun Watson playing is that there's still 4 more suits out there. And the attorney yesterday for those women, who is the attorney for all 24 of them, says he is looking forward to taking those to court. And so how does the 20 of them affect things at this point? And how do you not assume some guilt just from the outside looking in? Again, having no details of anything other than what we read in reports and what's been put on the record. How does the NFL not discipline Deshaun Watson? And it's so tricky, right? Because you never want to assume guilt. That's not the way our country works. And with all the money involved, certainly can see how someone could be taken advantage of in this situation from that end. But you can't ignore the other side, right? I mean, where there's smoke, 24 different women, and some recently came out after this HBO Real Sports story where they were just angry that there was absolutely no remorse shown and kind of consequences be damned, added their names to the list or added those suits in as well. I think I'm with Scotty. I don't think I see Deshaun Watson getting on the football field this year for the Cleveland Browns. I'd be shocked. I mean, it was shocking last year he didn't play at all either. It's almost like a de facto suspension last year, and maybe that's what the NFL comes out and says, but you can't, from PR standpoint, that didn't work. That was a contract situation, I think, for most of us watching it. And he just didn't want to play in Houston anymore. And they didn't have any recourse. And then you add this on top of it. Man, what an absolute mess, because I was pretty convinced that Deshaun Watson was going to be a Carolina Panther. it made a ton of sense football-wise for the Panthers to upgrade a quarterback. And I think I got Deshaun Watson as top 5 guy. Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson's in there for me. I get Tom Brady's still in the league, but to me, not quite up to those other guys at this point in his career. So the fact that we're now here, 20 out of 24 civil suits settled, I don't know what that means. If that means anything positively, to me, it might even go more the other way. Like I can only assume that the strategy was to have them all settled at this point, and maybe those 4 just popped up that Deshaun Watson and his legal team weren't prepared for. I don't know. Absolute mess, man. And just sad all the way around. Again, I'm not trying to minimize whatever was done. And the accusations and any of that, awful. And then from the selfish football fan in me, like the guy's a great player. And then the Cleveland Browns went all in on him with a guaranteed contract and the whole thing. Just crazy situation there. The exact opposite of the conversation of the favorite quarterback connection all time. Only got on that tangent because Deshaun Watson's got to be one of those. I wonder if Clemson fans still can keep him on that list as number 1, which, I mean, he earned on the field, national championships and doing it dramatically with Hunter Renfrow and who Hunter Renfrow is and the whole thing. It was on the opposite end of the career spectrum right now, just signing a 2-year extension for $32 million. I guess they're similar ends of the career spectrum, but just with the personal issues spectrum. So who would I put if I had all-time team? Who do I put at tight end? I think I put Gronk there. Who do you put? If you pick Tony Gonzalez, got no problems with it. Antonio Gates, no problems. Anybody else in there might be a tough sell for me. Wesley Walls was a great player for the Panthers, but I don't think goes down as an all-time great. Trying to think of other ones. Jason Witten, a great player if you're a Cowboys fan. Maybe if you're an old school Bears guy, you're going to put Mike Ditka in there. Okay. You're a Giants old school fan, you go Mark Bavaro. All right. I'm with you. There's something about the tight end that we all love. I think we love seeing a less athletic person out there making plays. It's almost like a sneaky tactic to slide one over the middle to the tight end when you have the massive weapons. Something that I think those of us who are less athletic, who are not so athletic out there, we just maybe hold on to. Maybe that's where the tight end guy came from on Sports Talk Radio. You got to throw the tight end more. And in college, it's always a really tricky thing, right? You just don't get a bunch of those freak athletes. Yeah, Anthony with another vote for Kellen Winslow just before my time. Yep, I got no problem. You put him in. And I think he's probably more the historical choice. You go just going by stats. I think you got to go Tony Gonzalez, but we all understand that the position changed and maybe those stats a bit skewed. Bavaro was a beast. Used to drag tacklers. Absolutely. Oh, who else am I? Mark Gastineau for the Jets. Another big name. Well, no, he's a defensive end, though, that I'm thinking. I don't know why that popped up in my head. It's one of those memory things that gets skewed. Maybe he dragged Gastineau one time. I don't know. But something to think of for sure. And that's why I didn't want to go a best quarterback connection, because the best one clearly is Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison from a statistical standpoint. I think most of us would go Joe Montana or Steve Rice to Jerry Rice. Steve Young to Jerry Rice. I said Steve Rice. Joe Montana or Steve Young. Difficult to argue either one of those to Jerry Rice, the best quarterback wide receiver combination of all time, quarterback pass catcher of all time. I think you really have to be a Patriots fan to go Brady to Gronk, because they're just so good for so long and so easy to not like in so many ways, being coached by Belichick and the whole deal. There it is. Thank you for correcting me there. The New York Sack Exchange has to know. I don't know why I brought him up on the tight end conversation. My apologies. But yet, to be very clear, when my kids ask me best football player of all time, I tell them Jerry Rice. And I got to tell them Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time. You can't deny it, even though I don't have to like it. But Jerry Rice, Barry Sanders, that's who I mentioned. Lawrence Taylor up there amongst the best football players of all time. But this favorite quarterback connection, Art Monk was my favorite guy. And I think he didn't just do it with Joe Theismann. It was Rob Schrader after that. I think he was still around. Doug Williams. I think Art Monk was always there through all the guys. Mark Rippon, I think he was still there. But the original one that was why I put as my favorite quarterback connection to the Joe Theismann to Art Monk days. And it's why I go back to the Todd Ellis and Sterling Sharp connection from the Gamecock perspective. Love 80s football talk. I'm with you, Jason. Brett Favre to the opposing team's defense, DC says. His favorite connection, quarterback connection. Before my time, but Jim Brown is up there too. Sure, Troy, no doubt. Got to put Jim Brown amongst the best football players of all time. I mean, throw Gale Sayers in there. Who else you got to throw in that conversation from a historical perspective? Some would say Otto Graham, or who else am I thinking of? Colts quarterback. Oh, people just yelling now. I'll get it in a second. I think, maybe. No. Memory. Memory is a slippery slope. But best NFL players of all time coming up simply because of Rob Gronkowski is one of the best, man. And one of the best characters for sure. I mean, I mentioned Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor was also a character. Brett Favre, a bit of a character in his own way, right? We don't have to get into the Jets situation. One of the characters, the great characters of the game. One of those people who, I don't know what it is that you wanted to hear what he had to say next, so you had no idea what he was going to say. Troy goes with meanest of all time. You go with Dick Butkus and Jack Lambert. Yep, and again, characters and attitude, and Mike Ditka as coach, and Vince Lombardi. Just so much that comes along with them other than X's and O's and success and football stuff, like lore. Maybe it's kind of revisionist history because the lore gets built up with all the success and the whole thing. Like Jerry Rice wasn't that guy, right? He just seemed like a relatively nice guy, extremely hard worker, identify with the underdog story and going to Jackson State and the whole thing. And Joe Montana and Steve Young didn't seem to really have any kind of polarizing opinions, or it was Joe Cool under pressure. Then Steve Young, just really, really good player, athletic quarterback, could run around, make plays, all kind of plays. The Colts quarterback is really messing with my mind right now. We got a couple minutes left in the program. If I don't come up with his name, it is just right there. John Unitas. Thank you. I'm so glad. And I said Jackson State, and I should have said Mississippi Valley State. Thank you, Troy. Christian Okoye. How about that? My hero growing up. Nigerian Nightmare. Fantastic, DC. He was one of the ones I like to play with most on John Madden football, the early versions. Just crush people. See, that's why I love doing this show live with you guys every day. Doing it now, 8 to 10. Please, if you haven't subscribed, do the like and the comment thing as much as you can. Really appreciate all the feedback, all the interaction during the live portion of the show. And all of you who listen at another time, certainly you're appreciated as well. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter. Actually, how about this? I probably shouldn't even say it. I think the followers are still maybe 3 right now. Just started the Instagram account at Tim Hill UFA. So if you do the Instagram, which I've never done, please hop over there and follow the Instagram account, and we'll get some clips up and rolling on that thing as well. Maybe more conducive to the, the video portion of the show. Anthony gets us out with a Reggie White was a monster on the field. Great show today, Tim. Thank you, Anthony. And he's another one that I mentioned to my kids. Got to be considered up there. One of, if not the best players of all time. DC gives us a piece, and that'll do it for today's program. Thanks for tuning in. We'll do it again tomorrow, 8 until 10. Who knows what will pop up? I'm guessing we'll talk some College World Series. Hopefully we'll have a couple of actual close games to talk about with 3 of the 4 final teams, SEC teams, Oklahoma, the other one headed to the SEC. Absolute dominance, hoping we can get football parity, national dominance like we've gotten in baseball. That'll do it for the June 22nd edition of Tim Hill, Unrestricted Free Agent.